The Kepler Station slave market reeked of fear and industrial lubricant. Emerson Hayes adjusted his merchant's coat, making sure the hidden recording device remained concealed beneath the expensive fabric. Years of Marine training had taught him to control his breathing, his expressions, but nothing had prepared him for the visceral disgust that threatened to overwhelm his cover. "Lot 17, bellowed the auctioneer, a reptilian drax with scales that caught the harsh artificial lights. "Rare specimen, pure-blooded Sarathi warrior-class female." Guards dragged forward a tall, muscular woman. Her amber eyes burned with defiance despite the energy shackles binding her wrists and ankles. Scars crisscrossed her copper-hued skin. Battle wounds. Emerson realized, not marks of abuse, but badges of honor. Her abdomen showed the unmistakable curve of pregnancy. "Breeding potential," the auctioneer continued, gesturing to her stomach. "Healthy female. Verified fertile. Starting bid, 20,000 credits." Emerson's jaw tightened. The galactic hegemony had technically outlawed slave trading of sentient species, but frontier stations like Kepler operated under their own rules. After the wars, enforcement had become a hollow threat, with stations claiming indentured servitude exemptions. He'd infiltrated 6 such operations in the past year, gathering evidence, disrupting sales where possible. But a pregnant slave? That was a new low. 25,000, called a voice from the crowd. 30, countered another. The Sarathi woman stood silent, but Emerson caught the slight tremble in her shoulders. Not fear, rage. Her eyes swept the crowd, memorizing faces. If those shackles came off, Emerson had no doubt she'd tear through half the bidders before security could stop her. The price climbed steadily. 50,000, 75,000. The crowd thinned as only the wealthiest slavers remained. 90,000, called a hegemony official in the front row, his uniform barely disguised under civilian clothes. Emerson stepped forward. 100,000 credits. The warehouse fell silent. The auctioneer's reptilian eyes widened. 100,000, going once? The official turned, scowling at Emerson. 110, 150,000. Emerson countered, activating his credit transfer. The sum would deplete nearly everything he'd salvaged from his military pension and subsequent bounties. But some things mattered more than money. "Sold," the auctioneer declared, unable to hide his excitement at the unprecedented sum. "See registration for transfer of ownership contract." Emerson approached the processing desk, aware of the glares following him. The officials processed his payment with suspicious efficiency. Minutes later, they handed him a data pad with the binding contract. He signed, watching as his life savings disappeared into the market's coffers. The Sarathi woman was brought to him, her energy shackles still humming with blue light. Up close, her eyes were even more striking, amber with flecks of gold, filled with intelligence and hatred. "Your property, merchant," the guard said, handing Emerson the control key for her shackles. Emerson took a deep breath. This was the dangerous part. He'd planned a more discreet exit, but seeing her pregnant, knowing what they intended for her child, plans changed. He held up the contract datapad, making sure the security cameras captured the image clearly. Then he turned to the Sarathi woman. "My name is Emerson Hayes," he said, "and this," he pressed his thumb to the corner of the datapad, activating the emergency incineration protocol built into all such devices, "is not a person anyone can own." The contract burst into blue flame, quickly reducing to ash in his palm. Gasps and shouts erupted around them. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice deeper than he'd expected, rough from disuse. "The right thing." Emerson took her arm gently and pressed the shackle key into her palm. "I'm leaving. You can come with me or stay, your choice." For a heartbeat, she stared at him in disbelief. Then alarms blared, and security forces began pouring into the warehouse. "Stop them!" the auctioneer shrieked. "Property theft!" The Sarathi woman's hands moved with lightning speed, deactivating her shackles. The moment they fell away, she grabbed the nearest guard, using him as a shield against stun blasts. "This way!" Emerson shouted, drawing his concealed blaster and firing at the ceiling lights. Darkness descended on sections of the warehouse, creating the chaos they needed. Together, they fought their way toward the service corridor. Emerson's military training matched her warrior instincts, and they moved like longtime partners rather than strangers. When they reached the maintenance door, Emerson fired the locking mechanism while she held back 3 guards with nothing but her bare hands. They slipped through, sealing the door behind them. "Can you run?" Emerson asked, eyeing her pregnancy. She gave him a withering look. "Better than you. Human." "Fair enough." He grinned, despite the situation. "I have a ship in docking bay 12. If we take the maintenance tunnels, we can—" A blaster shot sizzled past his ear. He spun, returning fire as more security forces poured in from a connecting corridor. "Talk less," the woman said, grabbing a fallen guard's weapon. "Move more." They raced through the grimy service tunnels, the station's klaxons wailing. Emerson had memorized the layout during his week of reconnaissance, but even he was surprised by how quickly his companion adapted to the unfamiliar terrain. She moved with predatory grace despite her condition, anticipating ambushes, choosing optimal cover. "You have a name?" Emerson asked during a brief respite as they waited for a patrol to pass. "Ulier," she replied. "Clan Sarathi." "Can I call you Ula?" She gave him a sidelong glance. "You paid enough for that privilege." "I didn't buy you," he corrected. "I bought and destroyed a worthless piece of paper that claimed you could be owned." "Semantics," she countered. But something in her expression softened. "Why? What do you want?" Before he could answer, the thunder of boots echoed from an adjacent corridor. "Tell you on the ship," he promised, "if we live that long." They encountered 3 more security teams before reaching the docking bay. By the time they stumbled into the hangar, both were breathing hard, spattered with blood, mostly not their own. The Wanderer waited, a sleek transport vessel disguised as a common cargo hauler. Emerson activated the remote launch sequence as they sprinted across the open space. "Halt!" boomed a voice over the hangar speakers. "Remain where you are, or we will open fire." "Ignore that," Emerson advised, pulling Ula behind a loading mech for cover as blaster fire erupted around them. "It wasn't planning to stop," she replied dryly. The ship's ramp descended, engines already warming. 50 meters of open ground remained, the most dangerous part of their escape. "Cover me," Emerson said, handing her his second blaster. "When I give the signal, run for the ship! Don't stop! Don't look back!" Ula checked both weapons. "What's the signal?" "You'll know." He winked, then darted from cover toward a fuel container. The security forces concentrated fire on his position. As he'd hoped, they assumed he was the greater threat. Under their barrage, he managed to set a timed charge on the container before rolling away. "Now!" he shouted as the charge detonated. The explosion wasn't large, but it created a wall of flame and smoke between the security teams and the path to the ship. Ula burst from cover, moving with incredible speed. Emerson followed, laying down suppressing fire. A stray shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He stumbled but kept moving. Ula had already reached the ramp. She turned, providing cover fire with remarkable accuracy as he staggered the final distance. "Go!" he gasped as they collapsed inside. The ramp closed behind them as blaster fire pinged off the hull. Emerson dragged himself to the cockpit, hand pressed against his wounded shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers, but the shot had cauterized much of the damage. He'd survive. "You know how to fly this?" Ula asked, following him. "Better than I can dance." He dropped into the pilot's seat, hands flying across the controls. "Strap in. This won't be subtle." The Wanderer lifted off, its engine screaming in protest at the emergency acceleration. Station security immediately locked onto them, tractor beams attempting to hold them in place. Emerson had anticipated this, however. He activated the ship's countermeasures, illegal modifications that momentarily scrambled the station's targeting systems. The moment they broke free, he punched the thrusters to maximum. Kepler Station fell away behind them, its defensive guns firing too late to catch their departure vector. "They'll send pursuit ships," Ula observed, clutching the armrests as the vessel shuddered under the strain. Counting on it, Emerson replied, inputting a complex sequence, going to light speed in 30 seconds. With no calculated jump path. Ula's eyes widened. That's suicide. Not quite. He gave her a tight smile. Trust me. Before she could protest further, space distorted around them as the hyperdrive engaged. Stars streaked into lines, then vanished completely as they entered the swirling tunnel of hyperspace. Emerson held his breath, counting silently. 3, 2, 1. He yanked back on the controls, dropping them out of hyperspace after only 7 seconds, far shorter than any standard jump. The sudden reversion sent warning alarms blaring throughout the cockpit. "Are you insane?" Ula demanded, gripping her harness as the ship stabilized. Tactically speaking, sometimes. Emerson checked the sensors. Micro-jumping, old marine trick. Pursuit will expect us to stay in hyperspace for at least several minutes, heading directly away from the station. Instead, we're practically right above it, just outside sensor range. He grinned, though the expression was strained by pain. They'll be chasing our ghost for hours. Ula studied him with new respect. You've done this before. Freeing slaves 7 times. He programmed a new course, this one much more cautious. Never with such a high-profile captive, though. I'm not a captive, she said sharply. Poor choice of words. Emerson winced as he shifted in his seat. Passenger. She fell silent, watching as he navigated through a debris field that would further shield them from detection. When they emerged, he set a new hyperspace vector, a genuine one this time. You're injured, Ula finally said. It's nothing. Humans and their pride. She stood up, moving with surprising steadiness despite the ship's motion. Where's your medical kit? Cabin storage, port side. Emerson kept his eyes on the controls, but he could hear her rummaging behind him. She returned with the med kit and, without preamble, tore open his bloodied sleeve. Her touch was clinical but not unkind as she examined the wound. Clean shot. You're lucky. I prefer skillful at not getting killed, he hissed as she applied antiseptic. Hold still. She worked efficiently, cleaning and bandaging the injury with practiced hands. You didn't answer my question before. Why did you do this? Emerson was silent for a long moment. The hyperdrive hummed steadily around them, the blue-white vortex outside the viewport casting shifting shadows across the cockpit. I served during the Hegemony Wars, he finally said. Saw things. Did things I'm not proud of. After it ended, I swore I'd balance the scales somehow. So I'm your redemption? Her voice hardened. Your good deed? No. He turned to face her fully. You're a person who deserved freedom, that's all. She finished securing the bandage, her amber eyes searching his face for deception. Whatever she found or didn't find seemed to satisfy her. Where are we going? She asked, changing the subject. Mining colony on Vega 6. Former commanding officer runs it now. It's off official charts. Safe for people who need to disappear. Like pregnant alien fugitives? And humans who annoy powerful slavers. He attempted a smile. We should arrive in about 10 hours, assuming we're not intercepted. Eula returned to her seat, her hand unconsciously moving to rest on her swollen abdomen. For the first time, Emerson noticed the fatigue etched in her features, the slight tremble in her fingers. You should rest, he said gently. Cabin's through there. Food synthesizer works well enough, and there's clean water. She hesitated, pride warring with exhaustion. What about pursuit? I'll maintain watch. Ship systems will alert us if anything approaches. Go. After another moment's consideration, she nodded and rose. At the doorway, she paused. Emerson Hayes. Yes? If you betray me, I will kill you before I die. Her voice held no malice, only calm certainty. I'd expect nothing less, he nodded solemnly. Sleep well, Ula. After she departed, Emerson leaned back in his chair, letting the adrenaline drain from his system. The pain in his shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat, but he'd endured worse. He checked the ship's sensors again, scanning for any sign of pursuit, but the void remained empty. For now they were safe. But experience had taught him that safety was always temporary in this corner of the galaxy. He was setting the autopilot when the proximity alarm suddenly screamed to life. Impossible. They were in hyperspace. Nothing could track them here. Yet the sensors showed multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace directly in their path. New technology or... "We've been betrayed," Ula said from the doorway, answering his unspoken question. How? Emerson's mind raced through possibilities. The station couldn't have tracked us through that micro-jump. "Not the station." Ula's expression was grim. "My father—" Before Emerson could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the console as the hyperdrive destabilized, forcing them back into normal space. 5 hunter vessels surrounded them, each bearing the distinctive crimson markings of Sarathi clan ships. "Your father sent a strike team to retrieve his pregnant daughter?" Emerson fought to stabilize the failing systems. "Seems excessive even for family drama." "It's not me he wants." Ula's hands cradled her stomach protectively. "It's what I carry." Understanding dawned on Emerson. "The child is hybrid?" She nodded once, her expression haunted. "The first of its kind, and according to ancient prophecy, either the doom of the Sarathi or their salvation." "I don't believe in prophecies," Emerson muttered, hands flying across the controls. "Neither do I." Ula replied, "But my father is first elder of our clan. His belief is all that matters." The comm system crackled to life, and a deep voice filled the cockpit. "Ulier of Clan Sarathi, return to your people immediately. The human will not be harmed if he surrenders now." Emerson glanced at Ula. "Friends of yours?" "Hunter priests." Her face hardened. "They track apostates and bring them to judgment." "Apostates like pregnant warriors who run from slave markets?" "Like daughters who defy their father's will." She reached for the weapon she'd set aside. "If they board us, we die." Emerson studied the tactical display. 5 ships, positioned to prevent escape in any direction. The Wanderer was fast but not heavily armed. He'd sacrificed weapons for stealth and speed. "Options?" he asked. Ula's amber eyes met his. "We fight until we can't." "Alternatively." Emerson's fingers danced over the emergency protocols. "We could take advantage of their formation." "How?" He pointed to the display. "They've surrounded us completely, which means they're also surrounding each other. If I overload our jump drive, the energy discharge could disrupt their systems." Ula finished, catching on quickly. "Exactly, but we'd be adrift. No propulsion, limited life support." "Better than captured." Her voice held no hesitation. Emerson nodded, initiating the sequence. "Brace for shockwave." The hyperdrive core began to whine, power levels climbing beyond safe parameters. The hunter ships drew closer, unaware of the trap. "Ulier." The voice came again. "This is your final warning. The prophecy must be fulfilled." Ula leaned toward the comm. "Tell my father the prophecy died when he sold his daughter." She cut the transmission as Emerson completed the overload sequence. The ship's lights flickered, then dimmed to emergency levels. 10 seconds. He warned. They strapped themselves in, eyes locked on the approaching vessels. 5, 4, 3. Ula reached across the gap between their seats, her hand finding his. He squeezed it once in solidarity. 2, 1, now! The hyperdrive core released its energy in a massive electromagnetic pulse. The blast wave rippled outward, washing over the hunter ships. Their lights flickered and died, weapon systems going dark as the pulse fried their systems. The Wanderer didn't escape unscathed. The console sparked and smoked as circuit breakers failed. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly before stabilizing at half strength, but the shields held, protecting the vital life support systems. When the chaos subsided, Emerson checked the sensors. All 5 hunter ships were adrift, their primary systems offline. It would take hours for their emergency protocols to restore basic functions. "It worked," he breathed. "For now," Ula released his hand, "but we're stranded." "Not entirely." Emerson switched to manual controls. "Auxiliary power should be enough to reach the nearest system. From there, we can send a coded message to Vega 6. And if they find us before help arrives? Then we improvise." He plotted their new course, the ship responding sluggishly. "Have a little faith, Ula." "Faith," she echoed, the word bitter on her tongue. Faith is what led my father to betray his own blood. Emerson glanced at her. What prophecy could justify selling your own daughter into slavery? Eula was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the viewport. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. The Sarathi believe that when the old universe dies and the new one begins, a child of mixed blood will lead the way, a bridge between species, bearing gifts of both. Her hand moved to her abdomen. The prophecy states that this child will be born of suffering, carried in the womb of a warrior who walks through fire. And your father interpreted that to mean you should be sold as a slave? Emerson couldn't keep the disgust from his voice. My father arranged everything. Her eyes flashed with renewed anger. My capture, my sale. He knew you would be there, or someone like you, a human with conscience enough to interfere. How could he possibly know that? He didn't need to know specifics, only that humans are predictable in their occasional heroics. Her smile was cold. He assumed whoever freed me would bring me to a safe haven where the child could be born. Then his hunters would retrieve us both. Emerson processed this, his tactical mind filling in the gaps. Your father gambled with your life on the chance that some random human would play hero? My father serves prophecy above all else, even family. She turned away. I should have seen it sooner. The bleakness in her voice struck something in Emerson. Without thinking, he reached out, his hand covering hers briefly. Hey, we're still alive. Your child is still safe. Whatever your father planned, it's already gone wrong. She didn't pull away immediately. Is it? Or are we following his script precisely? Before Emerson could answer, an alert chimed softly. He checked the readings with a frown. One of the hunter ships is reactivating faster than the others. Eula straightened. How much faster? Too fast. He studied the data. They must have had shielded systems. The largest of the Sarathi vessels was indeed recovering, its engines glowing as power returned. Unlike the others, it appeared to have sustained minimal damage from the pulse. We can't outrun them, not on auxiliary power, Eula said. No, Emerson agreed, but we can hide. He adjusted their course, directing the Wanderer toward a dense asteroid field at the edge of the system. It was risky. With their compromised systems, navigating the field would be nearly impossible. You're insane, Eula observed, though there was a hint of admiration in her voice. Tactically speaking, definitely. He managed a tight smile. But their ship is larger. They'll have even more trouble in there than we will. The hunter vessel had noticed their movement. It fired up its engines, pursuing with impressive speed despite the recent system shock. They're gaining, Eula warned, watching the tactical display. I see it. Emerson pushed the auxiliary engines beyond recommended limits. The ship shuddered in protest, but gradually picked up speed. They reached the asteroid field with the hunter ship less than a kilometer behind. Emerson immediately cut their engines, letting momentum carry them into the swirling mass of rock and ice. Without power signatures to track, they might lose their pursuer in the chaos. The gambit worked for approximately 45 seconds. Then a spotlight from the hunter ship caught them, illuminating the Wanderer's hull against the darkness of space. So much for hiding, Eula muttered. Time for Plan B. Emerson reactivated the engines. Which is? Instead of answering, he drove the ship directly toward a massive asteroid tumbling slowly through space. The hunter followed, closing the distance rapidly. Emerson. Eula's voice held a warning. Trust me, he replied, his eyes never leaving the approaching rock. At the last possible moment, he cut the engines again and fired the maneuvering thrusters, sending the Wanderer into a tight spin that barely cleared the asteroid's jagged surface. The hunter ship, with its greater mass and momentum, couldn't adjust in time. It clipped the asteroid, sending it into a different trajectory but damaging its own hull in the process. Ha! Emerson crowed, watching the hunter fall back, venting atmosphere from a tear in its side. That should slow them down. His triumph was short-lived. The ship's sensors detected energy readings from the damaged vessel. Weapons charging? They're locking on, Eula reported. Emerson swore under his breath. Hold on! He threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, using the asteroid field for cover. The hunter fired, a pulse of energy that missed the Wanderer but vaporized a smaller asteroid nearby. The resulting debris cloud peppered their hull, creating a cacophony of impacts. "We can't keep this up," Ula said, her knuckles white on the armrests. "One direct hit and—" She never finished the sentence. A second energy blast caught them at an angle, grazing the ship's stern. Alarms screamed as the port stabilizer failed completely. The Wanderer spun out of control, tumbling through space. Emerson fought with the controls, trying to compensate, but the damage was too severe. They were going to crash into the nearest large body, another asteroid, easily a kilometer across. "Impact in 30 seconds, he shouted over the alarms. Ula was already moving, securing loose items in the cabin. Emergency protocols? Automatic. Crash webbing should deploy, but— He glanced at her pregnant form. "The force could still be dangerous for you both." Understanding flashed in her eyes. Without hesitation, she returned to her seat and activated the enhanced protection protocols designed for injured passengers. The chair reconfigured, additional cushioning extending to create a protective cocoon around her abdomen. 15 seconds, Emerson called, still fighting to minimize their speed. "Brace!" The asteroid filled their viewport, its cratered surface rushing up to meet them. Emerson managed one final thruster burst to shallow their angle of approach before impact. The crash was deafening. Metal screamed as the Wanderer's hull connected with solid rock. Emerson felt himself thrown against his restraints, pain exploding across his chest. Something struck his temple, and darkness threatened at the edges of his vision. When the ship finally stopped moving, silence fell, broken only by the hiss of escaping air and the soft ping of cooling metal. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow throughout the cockpit. "Ula?" Emerson called, his voice hoarse. "Ula, can you hear me?" A groan came from the passenger seat. Through blurred vision, Emerson saw her protective cocoon had deployed successfully, though the crash had torn it partially free from its moorings. "I'm alive," she confirmed, her voice strained. "The child. I still feel movement." Relief washed through him. "Stay still. I'll check the damage." Releasing his harness proved more difficult than expected. His left arm wouldn't respond properly. Dislocated shoulder, he guessed. Using his good arm, he freed himself and stumbled to Ula's side. Her cocoon had protected her from the worst of the impact, but a gash across her forehead bled freely, painting crimson streaks down her copper skin. "You're hurt," she observed, reaching up to touch his temple. Her fingers came away red. He hadn't even noticed his own injury. "It's nothing. Can you move?" She nodded, and together they extracted her from the protective shell. As she stood, she winced, one hand going to her abdomen. "The baby?" "Active," she assured him. "Perhaps too active. I think the crash may have accelerated things." Emerson felt a chill that had nothing to do with the failing environmental systems. "You mean—" "Not immediately," she clarified, "but soon. Days rather than weeks." Before he could respond, the ship's remaining sensors blared a warning. The hunter vessel had located them and was maneuvering into position above the asteroid. "They're coming," Emerson said, moving to the weapons locker. "We need to leave. Now." "The ship is destroyed," Ula pointed out. "But the emergency beacon isn't." He retrieved 2 survival packs and a portable transmitter. "If we can reach the far side of this rock, we might be able to signal Vega 6 without the hunters detecting the transmission." Ula took one of the packs, slinging it over her shoulder with practiced ease. "And if they find us before help arrives?" Emerson handed her a blaster. "Then we make their victory very, very expensive." They made their way through the damaged ship, sealing bulkheads behind them to preserve what little atmosphere remained. The airlock was functional, but barely. Its mechanism groaned in protest as they cycled through. Outside, the asteroid's surface stretched before them, a desolate landscape of black rock and shadowed craters. With no atmosphere, their voices could only transmit through their suit comms. "Stay close," Emerson warned, activating his magnetic boots. "Gravity's minimal. One wrong step and you'll float away. I'm familiar with low-gravity environments, Ula replied, her movements already adjusted to the conditions. They set off across the asteroid's pitted surface, keeping the crashed ship at their backs. Overhead, the stars burned with cold clarity, interrupted occasionally by the looming shadows of other asteroids in the field. Of the hunter ship, there was no sign. Yet, they walked in silence for nearly an hour, conserving oxygen and energy. The terrain grew increasingly treacherous, forcing them to climb around deep fissures and scale small ridges. Despite her pregnancy, Eula moved with determined grace, never complaining even when Emerson noticed her breathing becoming labored. "We should rest," he said finally, indicating a sheltered overhang that would hide them from orbital scans. Eula didn't argue, which told Emerson more about her condition than any words could have. They settled into the natural alcove, connecting their suit systems to share resources. "How's our oxygen?" she asked. 6 hours at current consumption. He checked the gauges. "The beacon is prepped. Once we reach the far side, we can activate it." "And if Vega 6 doesn't respond in time?" Emerson met her eyes through their helmet visors. "One problem at a time, Ula." She nodded, then winced suddenly, her hand going to her stomach. "Oh, what is it?" Alarm sharpened Emerson's voice. "Nothing. Just active." She took a deep breath, the pain passing. "This child has its father's strength." Emerson hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering him since learning of her pregnancy. "The father. Was he part of your father's plan too?" Eula's expression hardened. "The genetic donor was chosen by the elders. I never met him." Her voice grew quiet. "I had no choice in any of it." The admission hung between them, heavy with implications. Emerson felt a renewed surge of anger toward the man who would use his own daughter as a vessel for prophecy. "When we reach Vega 6, he said, "you'll be safe, both of you. Captain Hayes runs a sanctuary for refugees from the wars. No one will force anything on you there." "Nowhere is truly safe," Ula replied. "Not for us. My father commands significant resources. He won't stop hunting us, hunting the child." "Then we'll stay one step ahead." Emerson checked their position on the portable nav system. "We're halfway to the transmission point. Ready to move?" Ula pushed herself up, always. They continued their journey across the asteroid's surface, each step requiring careful consideration in the minimal gravity. As they crested a particularly steep ridge, Ula suddenly pulled Emerson down behind a boulder. "Look," she whispered, pointing skyward. A shuttle from the hunter ship was descending toward the crash site, its searchlight sweeping the terrain. Had they left tracks? Probably. The fine dust of the asteroid's surface would hold footprints for decades in the airless environment. "They'll follow our trail," Emerson said. "We need to move faster, or create a false trail." Ula pointed to a narrow ravine that branched off from their path. "If we leave obvious signs heading that way, then double back." "Good thinking," Emerson nodded. "Let's do it." They deliberately scuffed the surface near the ravine, creating exaggerated prints, then carefully retraced their steps using only the natural rock formations for footing. It wouldn't fool trackers forever, but it might buy them the time they needed. The far side of the asteroid provided the shadow they required for a safe transmission. As Ula kept watch, Emerson set up the emergency beacon, calibrating it to the encrypted frequency Captain Hayes maintained for precisely such emergencies. Message away. He confirmed, "Now we wait." "How long?" "Depends on their patrol schedule. Could be hours. Could be—" His suit comm crackled suddenly with an incoming transmission. For a moment, Emerson feared the hunters had detected their signal. Instead, a familiar voice filled his helmet. "Emerson Hayes, you magnificent bastard! Still finding trouble at the edges of civilization. I see." Relief flooded through him. "Captain, your timing is impeccable as always. Picked up your distress call. Patrol ship was already in your sector. ETA 20 minutes. Sit tight." "Negative," Emerson replied quickly. "We have hostiles on site. Sarathi hunter vessels." A pause. "Understood. Patrol is armed. Can you hold position?" Emerson glanced at Ula. who was scanning the horizon with growing tension. "Affirmative. But we have a special passenger. Medical priority." "Copy that," the captain responded. "Patrol will approach with caution. Hayes out." The comm fell silent. Emerson turned to Ula. "Help is coming. 20 minutes." She nodded, but her attention remained fixed on something in the distance. "We may not have 20 minutes." Emerson followed her gaze. On the horizon, figures in environmental suits were visible, moving with purpose in their direction. "They found us." He checked his blaster's charge. "We need to delay them." "No," Ula's voice was firm. "You go. Draw them away. I'll wait for your patrol." "Not happening." Emerson shook his head. "We stay together." "Be logical, Emerson." Her amber eyes met his through their visors. "I'm slowing you down, and if they catch us both, the child has no chance." "I'm not leaving you," he insisted. "You're not—" She placed a hand on his arm. "You're saving 3 lives instead of 2. Go. Create a diversion. Lead them away from the transmission point. When your people arrive, I'll be here." Emerson wanted to argue, but her logic was sound. Split their forces. Increase the chances of at least one of them escaping. Still, leaving her felt wrong on a fundamental level. "Take this." He handed her his backup blaster. 15 minutes. If I'm not back, go with the patrol. Tell Hayes everything." She accepted the weapon with a solemn nod. "May the stars guide your path, Emerson Hayes." "And yours, Ulier of Clan Sarathi." He hesitated, then impulsively reached out, touching his helmet to hers, in the closest approximation of physical contact their suits allowed. "See you soon." Then he was moving, deliberately making himself visible as he crested a ridge, firing a single shot into the sky to draw attention. The hunter team spotted him immediately, changing course to pursue. Emerson led them on a winding chase across the asteroid's surface, using his superior knowledge of low-gravity maneuvering to stay just ahead of their grasping hands. 3 hunters, all in Sarathi battle armor, followed him with religious determination. Good. That meant fewer remained to search for Ula. He checked his chronometer. 7 minutes elapsed. 13 to go before the patrol arrived. He needed to maintain the pursuit without being captured, a delicate balance. When he reached a particularly steep crater, Emerson made a show of slipping, falling partially down the slope. The hunters rushed forward, sensing victory. At the last moment, he rolled aside, sending a cascade of loose rock into the crater. One hunter lost his footing, tumbling into the depression. The others hesitated, giving Emerson the opening he needed to escape. 10 minutes now. His oxygen levels were dropping faster than anticipated, the exertion of the chase taxing his reserves. He needed to circle back toward the transmission point soon. A blaster shot sizzled past his helmet, scorching the rock beside him. The hunters had regrouped and were closing in again. Emerson returned fire, not aiming to kill but to slow them down, targeting the ground at their feet. 12 minutes. Time to head back. He changed direction, using a series of connected ridges for cover as he worked his way toward Ula's position. The hunters followed, but at a more cautious pace, wary of his attacks. 14 minutes. Almost there. His suit's oxygen warning began to chime softly in his ear. Less than 30 minutes of breathable air remained, enough to reach the patrol ship if nothing went wrong. 15 minutes. He crested the final ridge that would lead back to the transmission point, and froze. Below, Ula stood surrounded by 2 more hunters. She held both blasters, but couldn't fire at either opponent without exposing herself to the other. Emerson didn't hesitate. He launched himself over the ridge, using the low gravity to extend his jump far beyond normal human capacity. As he soared through space, he fired repeatedly at the hunters, drawing their attention. His distraction worked. Both turned toward the new threat, giving Ula the opening she needed. She fired, catching one hunter squarely in the chest. The other managed to dodge, returning fire at Emerson as he landed. Pain exploded in Emerson's left leg as the blast connected. His suit integrity alarm shrieked, warning of imminent decompression. Emergency sealant deployed automatically, stopping the worst of the leak. But damage had been done. His mobility was compromised. Ula took advantage of the hunter's distraction, launching herself at him with surprising speed. They collided in the minimal gravity, tumbling across the asteroid's surface in a deadly dance. Despite her pregnancy, Ula fought with the skill of a trained warrior, eventually gaining the upper hand. A final, vicious strike disabled her opponent's helmet systems, leaving him gasping as his oxygen supply failed. She rushed to Emerson's side, supporting him as his injured leg threatened to collapse beneath him. "Your ship?" "Coming!" he gasped, the pain making speech difficult. "Should be here any—" A shadow fell across them as a vessel appeared overhead, sleek, unmarked, and definitely not Sarathi design. The patrol ship from Vega 6 had arrived. But so had the remaining hunters from Emerson's diversion. They crested the ridge, weapons raised. "Go!" Emerson shouted into his comm as the patrol ship deployed its landing ramp. "Run!" They staggered toward the waiting vessel, Eula half-carrying Emerson despite her condition. Behind them, blaster fire erupted, most shots falling short or deflected by the patrol ship's shields. The moment they cleared the ramp, it began to close. Armed figures rushed past them, returning fire at the hunters while medics helped them into the ship's interior. "Emerson Hayes!" A stern voice greeted him as his helmet was removed. "Always at the center of a firefight." Despite the pain and fatigue, Emerson grinned. "Good to see you too, Captain." Captain Hayes, a weathered woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes to match, shook her head in exasperation. "Get them to medical. We're leaving." The ship lifted off, artificial gravity engaging as they cleared the asteroid's minimal field. Emerson felt the familiar lurch of acceleration, then the distinctive ripple of a shield deflecting weapons fire. "The hunters?" he asked as medics cut away his damaged suit. "Outgunned," Captain Hayes replied. "They're falling back to their main vessel." "They won't give up," Ula warned, allowing another medic to help her out of her own suit. "Not while I carry this child." The captain studied her with shrewd eyes. "You must be the special passenger. Rest assured, Miss Sarathi, my colony has survived 3 hegemony raids. We can handle a few religious zealots." Eula didn't seem convinced, but exhaustion was clearly catching up with her. The medics guided her to an examination table, deploying advanced scanning equipment to check on both her and the baby. Captain Hayes turned back to Emerson, her expression softening slightly. "You look like hell." Hayes, "Feel worse." He admitted as the medics administered pain medication, but the mission was successful. "Was it?" She glanced toward Ula. "You've made powerful enemies. The Sarathi aren't known for forgiveness." "Some things matter more than safety." Emerson winced as the medics treated his leg wound. "She deserves freedom. Her child deserves a choice." The captain studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Always the idealist. It'll get you killed someday." "Probably." He managed a weak smile. "But not today." "No," she agreed. "Not today." The patrol ship accelerated away from the asteroid field, jumping to hyperspace as soon as they cleared the gravitational distortion. As the stars streaked into lines outside the viewport, Emerson allowed himself to relax fractionally. For now, at least, they had escaped. The real challenge would begin when they reached Vega 6, and when Ula's child decided to enter the universe. The mining colony on Vega 6 had never been beautiful, not even during its heyday as a hegemony outpost, carved into the side of a mountain range on a barely habitable moon. Its exterior resembled a haphazard collection of industrial modules and defensive emplacements. Inside, however, Captain Hayes had transformed the cold mining tunnels into something approaching a home. The medical bay where Emerson awoke was clean and well-equipped, a far cry from the field hospitals he remembered from the war. His injured leg had been properly treated, the damaged tissue regenerated. His shoulder still ached, but the joint had been reset and bandaged. "Welcome back to the land of the living." Captain Hayes greeted him, entering the room with a datapad. "Dr. Wallace says you'll make a full recovery." Again. Emerson tried to sit up, wincing at the residual pain. "How long was I out?" 12 hours. The sedative was necessary for the regeneration treatment. She handed him a cup of water. Your friend is doing well, resting in the adjacent ward. The baby! Still where it belongs, for now. The captain pulled up a chair. Dr. Wallace estimates another few days at most. The trauma of the crash accelerated the process, but everything appears stable. Emerson nodded, relief washing through him. Any sign of pursuit? Our perimeter sensors detected a Sarathi vessel at the edge of the system about 6 hours ago. It scanned the area but didn't approach. My people are on alert. They'll be back, Emerson said grimly, with reinforcements. Undoubtedly? The captain sighed. You certainly know how to liven things up around here. Hayes? Want to tell me exactly what I've gotten my colony involved in? Emerson related the events of the past 2 days, the slave auction, Ula's revelation about her father's betrayal, the prophecy, and their narrow escape. Captain Hayes listened without interruption, her weathered face betraying little emotion. When he finished, she remained silent for a long moment. A hybrid child of prophecy. She finally said, That's a new one, even for you. I don't believe in prophecies. Emerson reminded her. Neither do I, but people who do can be dangerous. She stood, pacing the small room. The Sarathi aren't just any religious zealots. Hayes. They're one of the oldest spacefaring races, with technology that sometimes borders on the mystical. If their first elder wants this child badly enough to sell his own daughter into slavery, we'll protect them, Emerson said firmly. The captain gave him a measured look. We'll try, but this colony's primary mission is to provide sanctuary for war refugees, not to fight a holy war against an ancient alien civilization. Before Emerson could respond, a soft knock came at the door. It slid open to reveal Ula, dressed in simple colony clothing, her copper skin glowing with health despite the fatigue evident in her eyes. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said. Captain Hayes waved her in. Not at all. I was just telling Hayes here what a delightful mess he's created. Ula's lips quirked in a ghost of a smile. He has a talent for it. So I've observed. The captain nodded to them both. I'll leave you to talk. The doctor wants to see you both in 2 hours for follow-up scans. After she departed, Ula took the vacated chair beside Emerson's bed. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence. You look better, Emerson finally said. As do you, for someone who nearly lost a leg. Her amber eyes studied him. The doctors here are skilled. Captain Hayes recruits only the best. He shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position. How's the little one? Eula's hand moved to her abdomen. Active. The doctor says everything is progressing normally. Despite everything? Good. Emerson hesitated, then asked, Have they told you about the Sarathi ship? She nodded. I expected nothing less. My father is not one to abandon a quest, particularly one he believes ordained by destiny. You don't seem afraid. Fear is a luxury I cannot afford. Her gaze was steady. I must prepare for what comes next. Which is birth, confrontation, perhaps battle. She shrugged. The future is always uncertain. Emerson studied her, struck again by her composure in the face of such adversity. You know, most people would be falling apart after what you've been through. Would they? She seemed genuinely curious. Humans are more fragile than I thought. He laughed despite himself. Not fragile, just not all trained as warrior-class Sarathi. Perhaps, her expression softened. Your Captain Hayes has been kind. She's assigned me quarters near the medical bay and given me access to the colony's facilities. She's a good judge of character. Emerson pushed himself up straighter. I should get out of this bed. Show you around. The doctor was quite clear that you should rest. Ula's tone brooked no argument. I can explore on my own. At least let me... The medical bay's alarm suddenly blared, cutting him off. Red emergency lights began flashing in the corridor outside. Captain Hayes' voice came over the colony-wide comms. Attention, all personnel. Multiple vessels have entered the system. Defensive positions. This is not a drill. Emerson was already moving, ignoring the pain as he swung his legs off the bed. They found us faster than I expected. My father would have prepared contingencies. Ula helped him stand, supporting his weight when his injured leg threatened to buckle. He always does. They made their way to the command center, joining Captain Hayes as she coordinated the colony's defenses. The main display showed 5 Sarathi vessels approaching, significantly larger than the hunter ships they'd encountered before. Warships. Ula identified them, her face grim. Clan fleet. "How did they find us so quickly?" the captain demanded. "We may have been tracked from the beginning." Emerson realized if Ula's father orchestrated her capture and sale, he could have anticipated a rescue attempt. The slave auction was a trap, Ula agreed. A way to identify who might help me escape, and to where. Captain Hayes swore under her breath. "Communications. Prepare to broadcast. Maybe we can reason with them." "You can't." Ula said quietly, "My father believes he serves prophecy. There is no reasoning with divine mandate." The comm officer looked up. "Captain, we're being hailed." "On screen," Hayes ordered. The display shifted to show a Sarathi male. His copper skin darkened with age, his amber eyes identical to Ula's but colder, calculating. Elaborate markings covered his forehead and temples, signs of rank and clan lineage. "I am Karath, first elder of Clan Sarathi," he announced without preamble. "I come for what is mine." Ula stepped forward, her stance proud despite her condition. "I am not yours, father, nor is my child." Karath's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps even a hint of pride quickly suppressed. "The prophecy is larger than any individual. Daughter, you know this." His voice remained measured, reasonable. "Return willingly, and these humans will be spared." "And if I refuse?" Ula challenged. "Then they die for nothing." He spread his hands. "The child will fulfill its destiny regardless. Why sacrifice innocent lives?" Captain Hayes stepped forward. "This colony is under hegemony protection. Elder Korath. Any hostile action will be considered an act of war." Korath's smile was cold. "The hegemony is a fading power, Captain, and we both know your protection is merely a polite fiction. No one will come to your aid." "You don't need to attack," Emerson interjected. "Whatever your prophecy says, it can't require the death of innocents." "On the contrary, human." Korath's gaze shifted to him. "The prophecy speaks clearly of blood and fire preceding the child's birth. You have merely played your part in the grand design." "I don't believe that," Emerson stated firmly. "Your belief is irrelevant." Korath turned back to Ula. "You have 1 hour to surrender yourself, daughter. After that, we will retrieve you from the ashes of this colony." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. "Well," Captain Hayes said dryly, "he seems pleasant?" "He is a true believer," Ula replied, her voice hollow. "The most dangerous kind of enemy?" The captain turned to her tactical officer. "Status of our defenses?" "Shield generators at full capacity. Weapon systems online. We've deployed all combat-capable personnel to defensive positions." "Evacuation protocols?" "In progress. Non-essential personnel and children are being moved to the emergency shelters in the deep mines." Captain Hayes nodded. "Good. Maintain alert status." She turned to Emerson and Ula. "We should discuss options privately." They moved to the captain's adjacent office, away from the bustle of the command center. "I should surrender," Ula said as soon as the door closed. "Save your people." "Not happening," Emerson replied immediately. "He's right." The captain agreed. "First, we have no guarantee your father would keep his word. Second, this colony doesn't surrender its people, not to the hegemony, not to pirates, and certainly not to religious zealots with delusions of prophecy." "You don't understand," Ula insisted. "My father commands the resources of an entire clan. Your defenses can't hold against a determined assault." "Perhaps not indefinitely," Captain Hayes acknowledged, "but long enough for our distress signal to reach hegemony command. The nearest patrol fleet is 18 hours away." "He knows that," Ula said, "which means he plans to finish this in less than 18 hours. "Then we hold for 19, Emerson stated, his jaw set. "These people survived the wars. Ula, They know how to fight impossible odds. She looked between them, her expression torn between hope and despair. Finally, she nodded. Then I will fight with you. For my child's freedom, if nothing else. Good. Captain Hayes checked the time. We have 53 minutes before they expect your answer. Let's use it wisely. The next hour passed in a flurry of activity. Captain Hayes mobilized the colony's reserves, former Marines and soldiers who had sought peace but still remembered war. Defensive positions were reinforced, backup systems checked and double-checked. Emerson, despite his injuries, insisted on joining the defense planning. His tactical expertise proved valuable as they identified potential weak points in the colony's structure. Eula, meanwhile, provided crucial information about Sarathi battle tactics and technologies. Her insider knowledge allowed them to calibrate shields and weapons for maximum effectiveness against the coming assault. As the deadline approached, they gathered again in the command center. The Sarathi ships had arranged themselves in attack formation, weapon systems humming with energy. It's time, Captain Hayes said. Ula, are you certain about this? Ula nodded, her hand resting protectively on her abdomen. My father gave me no choice. I will not do the same to my child. The captain activated the comm. Elder Koroth, this is Captain Hayes. We have considered your demand. Koroth's face appeared on screen, impassive. And your answer? We respectfully decline. Hayes replied evenly, This colony offers sanctuary to all who seek freedom. We will not surrender anyone under our protection. Then you have chosen destruction, Koroth stated without emotion. My daughter. Your daughter has chosen her own path. Ula interrupted, stepping into view. As will her child. The prophecy speaks of choice. Father, you've simply ignored those passages that don't suit your interpretation. Something flickered across Koroth's face, doubt, perhaps. But it vanished quickly. You cannot escape destiny, Ulier. Perhaps not, she agreed. But I can face it on my terms, not yours. Koroth stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. So be it. The transmission ended. Almost immediately, the Sarathi vessels began to move, spreading out to surround the colony. Defensive positions, Captain Hayes ordered. All civilians to shelters. Medical team on standby. The first assault came swiftly, precision strikes against the colony's sensor arrays and communication dishes. The shields held, but the impacts resonated through the structure, causing lights to flicker briefly. They're trying to blind us, Emerson observed. Cut us off from potential help. Secondary systems are engaging. The tactical officer reported, We still have sensor coverage and communications. The next wave targeted the shield generators themselves. More powerful weapons, energy cannons that Ula identified as ceremonial weapons typically reserved for clan rituals, hammered against the colony's defenses. Shields at 86%, the officer called out. Holding for now. Return fire, Captain Hayes ordered. Target their weapon emplacements. Disable rather than destroy if possible. The colony's defensive turrets responded, sending precisely aimed blasts toward the Sarathi vessels. Several found their marks, creating small explosions along the ship's hulls, but the damage appeared minimal. Their shields are formidable, the tactical officer noted. They're testing us, Emerson realized, probing for weaknesses. The assault continued for nearly an hour, a carefully orchestrated dance of attack and defense. The colony's shields gradually weakened under the sustained barrage, dropping to 60% capacity. Then, abruptly, the attack ceased. The Sarathi vessels pulled back to a higher orbit, maintaining formation but no longer firing. What are they doing? Captain Hayes wondered aloud. Regrouping, Ula suggested. Or... She never finished the thought. A sharp gasp escaped her as she doubled over, one hand clutching her abdomen. Eula! Emerson was at her side instantly, supporting her. What is it? The child, she managed through gritted teeth. It's coming. Medical personnel rushed forward, helping her onto a stretcher. As they prepared to move her to the medical bay, the tactical officer called out, Captain, multiple small craft launching from the Sarathi vessels. The display showed dozens of transport ships descending toward the colony, landing parties. They're sending ground forces, Captain Hayes realized. They want to take the colony intact. For the child, Emerson added grimly. They timed their assault to coincide with the birth. The captain turned to the medical team. Get her to the secure medical bay in the deep shelter. Hayes, go with them. I'll coordinate the defense. Emerson hesitated, torn between duty to the colony and to Ula. The captain made the decision for him. Go, she ordered. That child is what they want. Keep it safe. He nodded, limping alongside the stretcher as they rushed Ula toward the elevators that would take them to the colony's lower levels. The secure medical bay was a reinforced chamber designed to function even if the rest of the colony lost power. Originally built to treat critical cases during the hegemony wars, it now served as both hospital and fortress. Dr. Wallace, a calm woman with steady hands and a reassuring presence, met them at the entrance. How far apart are the contractions? She asked as they transferred Ula to the birthing bed. 4 minutes, one of the medics reported, increasing in intensity. Good. Vitals are strong for both mother and child. The doctor turned to Emerson. You should wait outside. No, Ula gasped, reaching for his hand. He stays. Dr. Wallace raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Very well, but stay out of our way. As the medical team prepared for the delivery, the sounds of battle reached them even through the reinforced walls. Distant explosions, the whine of energy weapons, the occasional shudder as something impacted nearby. They've breached the outer defenses, Emerson observed, checking his comms. Captain Hayes is coordinating a fighting retreat to the inner sections. My father? Ula's voice was strained as another contraction hit. He will come himself, for the child. He'll have to go through me. Emerson promised, squeezing her hand. Dr. Wallace checked Ula's progress. You're dilating quickly. This won't be a long labor. Sarathi births rarely are. Ula managed, her breathing controlled despite the pain, especially for warriors. The next hour passed in a blur of increasing contractions and worsening news from above. The colony's defenders fought valiantly, but the Sarathi forces pressed their advantage of numbers and technology. Level by level, section by section, they pushed deeper into the complex. They've reached the residential quarters, Emerson reported grimly after receiving an update. Captain Hayes is falling back to the central hub. How many casualties? Ula asked between contractions. Minimal so far. Your father's forces seem to be using non-lethal methods where possible. He wants witnesses, she explained, for the prophecy to be fulfilled properly. Well, he's going to be disappointed. Dr. Wallace interjected. Because this baby is coming now, and there's nothing prophetic about it. Just good old-fashioned biology. She positioned herself at the foot of the bed. On the next contraction, I need you to push, Ula. The Sarathi woman nodded, her face set with determination. When the contraction came, she bore down with controlled strength, her warrior's discipline evident even in childbirth. Good. The doctor encouraged. I can see the head. Another push. Ula complied, her grip on Emerson's hand tightening to the point of pain. He didn't flinch, offering what support he could in this battle she fought alone. The comms crackled. Captain Hayes's voice came through, accompanied by the sounds of combat. Hayes, they've broken through to the medical level. We're trying to hold them at the junction, but... Static interrupted the transmission. Captain, Emerson called. Captain Hayes. No response. They're coming, Ula gasped, releasing his hand. You need to prepare. Emerson nodded, retrieving his blaster from its holster. He positioned himself near the entrance, ready to defend the birthing chamber against all comers. Dr. Wallace remained focused on her task. One more big push, Ula. The baby's almost here. With a final, powerful effort, Ula brought her child into the world. A tiny cry filled the room, surprisingly strong for such a new life. It's a girl, the doctor announced, quickly cleaning and examining the infant. Perfectly healthy as far as I can tell. She placed the newborn on Ula's chest. The baby's skin was a lighter copper than her mother's, with a faint golden sheen that seemed to shift in the light. Her eyes, when they briefly opened, were a startling blue gold, neither human nor fully Sarathi. She's beautiful, Emerson said softly, momentarily distracted from his guard position. Eula touched her daughter's cheek with gentle wonder. "She is free," she whispered. "That's what matters." The moment of peace was shattered by a thunderous explosion from the corridor outside. The reinforced door to the medical bay shuddered but held. "They're here," Emerson warned, raising his weapon. The second blast breached the outer security door. Smoke poured into the chamber as shadowy figures appeared in the doorway. Sarathi warriors in ceremonial armor, weapons raised. Emerson fired, dropping the first two before they could enter. The others fell back, regrouping. "Ula," he called over his shoulder, "can you move?" "If necessary." She replied, though exhaustion was evident in her voice. She cradled her newborn protectively, unwilling to relinquish her even to the waiting medical staff. A voice called from beyond the smoke, "Emerson Hayes, I would speak with you before more blood is shed." Korath, the first elder himself, had come. "Nothing to discuss," Emerson replied, keeping his weapon trained on the doorway. "Leave this colony." "I cannot," Korath answered, "not without seeing the child." "So you can take her?" Emerson shook his head. "Not happening." "I ask only to see," Korath insisted, "to confirm the prophecy with my own eyes. After that, we may find a path forward that requires no further violence." Emerson glanced back at Ula, silently asking her opinion. She hesitated, then nodded once. "You may enter," Emerson called. "Alone. Unarmed. Any weapons or attempts to take the child will be met with lethal force." "Agreed," Korath replied. The smoke cleared enough to reveal the first elder stepping through the damaged doorway. He had disarmed as promised, wearing only his ceremonial robes without the traditional weapons that should have accompanied them. As he entered, Emerson noted movement behind him. Captain Hayes and several defenders, bloodied but alive, had managed to follow the Sarathi forces to the medical level. They held position in the corridor, weapons ready. Korath approached the birthing bed slowly, his eyes fixed on the bundle in Ula's arms. Despite his controlled expression, Emerson could see the anticipation, the almost religious fervor in his gaze. "The child," he said quietly. "Show me." Ula hesitated, then turned the infant slightly, allowing her father to see the newborn's face. The baby's eyes opened at that moment, her unusual blue-gold irises seeming to focus directly on Korath. What happened next defied explanation. The infant's skin began to glow with a soft, golden light. It expanded outward, filling the room with warmth and a strange sense of peace. Every person present, Sarathi warriors, human defenders, medical staff, felt a sudden wave of not quite emotion, not quite thought, but something between understanding, empathy, a connection that transcended species and conflict. Korath staggered back, his hand going to his chest as if physically struck. "The light of understanding," he whispered, just as the prophecy foretold. The glow subsided gradually, leaving the infant looking normal once more, albeit extraordinarily beautiful in the way all newborns are to those who love them. "What just happened?" Dr. Wallace asked, her scientific mind struggling to process what she'd witnessed. "The child's gift," Korath explained, his voice unsteady. "The prophecy speaks of one who would bridge minds as well as bloodlines, who would carry understanding where words fail. An empath," Emerson realized, "not mind control, but true empathy." "More than that," Ula said, gazing down at her daughter with new comprehension, "a catalyst for understanding, for peace." Korath approached again, this time with reverence rather than conquest in his bearing. "May I hold her?" Eula studied her father, seeing the change in him, the crack in his certainty, the humbling of his pride. After a moment's consideration, she nodded. With trembling hands, Korath accepted his granddaughter. The moment he cradled her, tears began to flow freely down his weathered face. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Not about the prophecy itself, but about its meaning. It was never about control or power. It was about this." He gestured to the room, where former enemies stood together without hostility. Understanding, connection. "The child will lead the way," Ula quoted softly. "Not through force, but through bridging hearts." Korath nodded, returning the infant to her mother's arms. I have done you great wrong, daughter. In my certainty, I became the very darkness the prophecy warned against. Yes, Ula agreed without hesitation. You did. I cannot undo what has been done. He continued, but I can honor the true meaning of the prophecy from this day forward. He turned to Emerson and Captain Hayes. I offer reparations for the damage we have caused, and I extend the protection of Clan Sarathi to this colony and all who dwell here. Captain Hayes stepped forward, her expression cautious but open. We'll discuss terms once your warriors stand down. They already have, Korath assured her. The child's gift touched all who were near. There will be no more fighting today. True to his word, reports soon confirmed that Sarathi forces throughout the colony had ceased hostilities. Many had laid down their weapons entirely, standing in apparent confusion as the wave of empathy disrupted lifetimes of conditioning and belief. In the days that followed, an uneasy peace settled over the colony. Sarathi and human worked side by side to repair the damage from the assault. Korath, true to his word, provided resources and technology far beyond what the colony had previously possessed. Eula named her daughter Hope, a human word she had learned from Emerson, one that captured her vision for the child's future. The infant's empathic abilities manifested periodically, always bringing clarity and understanding rather than domination or control. A council formed composed of both colony leaders and Sarathi representatives. They discussed not only reparations but future cooperation, the beginning of a new relationship between species that had too often found themselves at odds. Throughout it all, Emerson remained at Ula's side, his self-appointed role as protector evolving into something deeper, more profound. They were not quite family, not quite friends, but something unique, forged in fire and blood, tempered by shared purpose. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the colony's observation deck, Hope sleeping peacefully in Ula's arms, Emerson voiced the question that had bothered him since the birth. Do you believe in the prophecy now? Ula considered this, her amber eyes reflecting the dying light. I believe my daughter has a gift, she said carefully. Whether that gift was foretold or simply is, does it matter? I suppose not, Emerson conceded. What matters is what she chooses to do with it. Exactly. Eula smiled, a rare expression that transformed her warrior's face into something softer, more vulnerable. Choice. That is what you gave us both. Emerson Hayes, when you burned that contract, you didn't just free a slave, you freed a future. Emerson took her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. A future worth fighting for. Worth living for? She corrected gently. As darkness fell, the first stars appeared above the colony, a sanctuary becoming a home, a battlefield transformed into common ground. Below, in tunnels once meant only for extraction and profit, people of different worlds worked together to build something new. And in her mother's arms, a child of two bloodlines slept, dreaming perhaps of the bridges yet to be built, the understanding yet to be fostered, not through prophecy or predestination, but through the simplest and most powerful force in any universe: choice. The choice to understand, the choice to connect, the choice to love. In the end, that was the true prophecy, not what must be, but what could be, if brave hearts chose to make it so.